Hey everyone, it's Selwen here. Let's talk about Holy Paladin. Now, just like Protection, Holy Paladin has gotten the addition of Holy Power back into our resources. So now we have two resources. We have mana and we have Holy Power to manage. Now, I think this will be a little bit polarizing overall, just kind of like our mastery, there's a lot of people that hate the Paladin Mastery, the Holy Paladin Mastery, and some people that do like it. So Holy Power, I think, is going to be kind of like that, and you do have to recognize that they added some skill cap to the spec. There's a big difference between a Holy Paladin that takes advantage out of your mastery and a Holy Paladin that just kind of forgets that it exists and doesn't take advantage of it at all. Now, the Holy Power resource is going to be much in the same, because for you to actually generate a decent amount of Holy Power, you have to actively sort out to build it up. It's not something that just comes to you like Retribution or even in Protection. No, it's actually something that you need to target and do. And so let's talk about that. Well, before that, what are you going to use Holy Power with? Well, you're going to use on your new/old Word of Glory, okay? This is pretty much your old Holy Shock, okay? It's just one big single target heal that you can use to top people up. Pretty useful. And you have Light of Dawn, you know all about this, so now it just doesn't have a cooldown and it has that 3 Holy Power cost. So those are the abilities that you're going to have to decide when you get to the 3 Holy Power charges, stacks, to which one you're going to use rather. So how are you going to build it? Well, Holy Shock is going to be your primary-ish way to get Holy Power, as it gives you one. I know Holy Shock is something that you're going to use quite often, so you naturally going to get Holy Power through this ability. But in realistic scenarios, when you're doing a dungeon and stuff like that, you're not going to generate enough Holy Power to actually use your Words of Glories and your Light of Dawns frequently if you just rely on Holy Shock. So you're gonna have to use other abilities. So what other ways can you build Holy Power? Well, Beacon of Light. Your beacon also generates Holy Power through your Flash of Lights and your Holy Lights. Now, one thing I don't like about this, and one thing that I do like, is one, it feels a little bit counterintuitive to me, because the idea with Beacon of Light is that you place on a tank, and then when possible you're gonna avoid, quote unquote, avoid healing that that beacon's character, that beacon's our ally party member, to heal other people, to spread your healing. Right? That's kind of the idea of Beacon of Light. So when you're doing that, I kind of feel like I'm missing out on, on Holy Power, but you can specifically target the Beacon character to build up, especially if you are safe on mana and stuff like that. But in most circumstances, you're going to be fine building Holy Power through Beacon of Light. The tank is going to need pretty regular heals, so you're gonna actively build Holy Power in that way. Now, another way to actively build Holy Power in a quite a meaningful way, is through Crusader Strike. Now, Crusader Strike was already an ability that you used quite frequently now currently in BFA due to Crusader's Might, because it reduced the Holy Shock cooldown. So now it has a bigger synergy, and it has a bigger interaction, and has a bigger meaning to it due to the fact that it builds Holy Power. So now it's heavily emphasized that you should go in and try to do Crusader Strikes whenever you can, to both reduce the cooldown of Holy Shock if you're using the talent, and to give you Holy Power. If you do that, you're gonna get a huge abundance of Holy Power, and that's what I meant about it being kind of similar to our mastery. Because if you are a Holy Paladin that just doesn't care or doesn't really go for Crusader Strikes and whatnot, you're gonna miss out on a lot of Holy Power. But if you're actively doing that, if you're actively sorting that out, if you're playing with all of your toolkit, just like with our mastery, you kind of positioning yourself in the right ways, in the right moments, you're gonna be rewarded by it by giving you more holy power and in turn more healing through Wars of Glories and Light of Dawns. So that's what I like about holy power currently on holy, and there's more to it in your talents and whatnot, but that's what I like about it. I actually try to replicate what some new holy paladin player would do, or a less skilled holy power player would do, if you will, right? And just, standing back and just doing my flash of lights, doing my holy lights, doing my holy shocks, just healing naturally, kind of like I was a priest. And there was a big difference between the run that I did playing like that and the run that I did when I was, utilizing all of my toolkit, using my Crusader Strikes whenever I could to generate as much holy power. And there was a big difference with the amount of Words of Glories and Light of Dawns I could actually put out. So I do like that somewhat skill cap involved there with the way you generate holy power. Now, there is another ability that you can generate holy power with, and that is Hammer of Wrath. Yes, it is baseline to Holy Paladins as well, and you're going to be able to get 1 extra holy power through this. So in a dungeon, for an example, doing trash, you also want to actively, just like Crusader Strike, try and put out those Hammer of Wraths whenever possible to also give you holy power to then face the other pack and be able to use your Word of Glories and Light of Dawns again. So that's kind of the idea it's going with Hammer of Wraths as well. So if you maximize that as well, you're going to be rewarded by it, which again, just like Crusader Strike. And in addition to that, there's a cool synergy with Avenging Wrath, because Hammer of Wrath at level 58 in Shadowlands, you're going to get a little modifier where it becomes available during Avenging Wrath, regardless of health. So when you pop Avenging Wrath, not only is obviously a very powerful cooldown for you to just get big heals out and get the Holy Shock crit and whatnot, you're also going to be able, in between that, if you have a window that you can do that, you can throw out some Hammer of Wraths to further build up your holy power, to further increase your healing output. So I do like that synergy that is going on there and the whole holy power generation. But again, just like our mastery, it can be a little bit annoying because not every fight is going to allow you to go in and do Crusader Strikes. Sometimes it can get a little bit messy, but for the most part, it is fine. But I do get those concerns, just like the way that our mastery works, where it can be a little bit annoying. But personally, I do like it, and it makes the playing a holy power, the gameplay of a holy paladin, very active, because you never really sit still, right? And that's something that I would advise. This is not a guide, but I would advise for holy paladins is that you can always be doing something. If nobody needs a heal, you can now just going in there, doing Crusader Strikes, you helping out with damage, and you helping out yourself by building holy power to then go into the big heals that is Word of Glory. Okay, so that's our kind of baseline gameplay, our bare bones gameplay that we now having. Besides that, what else we also getting new? Well, we getting auras. Now, as a Holy Paladin, we also did get auras in BFA and in Legion through talents, but now they are completely baseline, and we get a Crusader Aura, which is, more flavorful, but since it no longer is a buff, you are losing some movement in your Divine Steed, so it's now moving 20% slower because it counts as a mount, so you're losing that little benefit from Crusader Aura, because most of the time you're going to be with Devotion Aura, which is now just a flat 3% damage reduction. So it kind of sucks there on Crusader Aura. It's a little bit of a nerf in our mobility, which is something that we already are really poor at. So yeah. Then we have Devotion Aura, as I said, and also got a little bit of a nerf because when you pop Aura of Mastery now, it increases Devotion Aura damage reduction by 15%, no longer 20%, so again, a little bit of a nerf, but we do have that flat 3% damage reduction. And on Crusader Aura, if you're wondering, if you pop Aura of Mastery, you actually get a 60% mount speed bonus, which is interesting. Then we have Concentration Aura, which is reducing the interrupts and silence effects on party and raid members by being 30% shorter. And if you pop Aura Mastery, you become immune to interrupts and silences. That is pretty insane. I think especially in PvP rather, that is going to be pretty crazy. So you have that and a bubble to make yourself immune while you are healing. Yeah, it's kind of silly. Then you have Retribution Aura, which is the worst one, and as I said in my protection video, as I said in my Retribution video, this aura doesn't make a lot of sense. So it's essentially giving you Avenging Wrath when a party or raid member dies. Again, like I said in those two videos, this thematically is pretty cool because you're getting Avenging Wrath to somewhat avenge your friendly player, your ally, whatever you want to call it. And the problem with this is one devotion aura is something that you want to keep up all the time, so you're kind of losing that out. So unless you have more than one paladin, you cannot really realistically use Retribution Aura, and maybe you can have some infighting between which one of those, which one of you are gonna actually use Retribution Aura. And the other thing is, if you want to maximize this in some way, it's impossible because you cannot predict people dying. And the Aura Mastery effect modifier, it's even sillier because it's just increasing your duration. It's increasing the Avenging Wrath duration of the aura buff by 50%. So it's double impossible targeting that is happening here, which is really silly. So I hope Blizzard does change that and makes this a complete passive just like it was, and that will be much better. So yeah, that covers our baseline changes. I don't think I'm missing anything. We do have Turn Evil, but I think we had Turn Evil in BFI. Actually, it's pretty useful. Did a run earlier where that became pretty handy. So yeah, let's move over to our talents. So our talents basically change to accommodate to no longer having auras, and to accommodate to Holy Power, and to accommodate, to accommodate all those changes that I just said. And the new Glimmer Flight as well, the trait, but we'll get there. So the first year, nothing has changed outside of the fact that Crusader's Might now feels a little bit more interesting due to the fact that Crusader Strike is a little bit more important due to the generation of Holy Power. But these two are the same, and they still have their places. I really like Light's Hammer as well still, even though it's really costly. Second year here, the row is kind of the same, was down here, now it's just here, but we do get Saved by Light, which is a new one, which when your Beacon of Light target is below 30%, it gets a shield, and the shield is rather meaningful, but it cannot occur twice within 1 minute, so this will kind of help when your tank is being heavily damaged and you're having trouble keeping it up, or it's a surprise, surprise hit that you are not expecting, stuff like that. So this can be useful. And if you use Beacon of Virtue, which is your AoE beacon of sorts, this will actually apply to all of your Beacons of Virtue targets, which is rather nice. It's rather nice. But other than that, I still really like Judgment of Light, but this is a nice option here to have. These ones are the same. These ones are the same as well. Rule of Law, again, this row just changed places. So we have Divine Purpose down here, and now due to the fact that we have Holy Power, this is no longer causing extra Holy Shocks and extra Light of Dawn. Actually, it's causing extra Light of Dawns, but it's no longer causing extras Holy Shock procs. So that interaction between that and Glimmer of Flight is gone, sadly. So what it's now providing is just a proc that will make your next Word of Glory or your next Light of Dawn free. Now, it's fine. What I don't like about Divine Purpose working this way, because before it worked really well with Glimmer of Light, so you can spread your Holy Shocks more to, get more advantage out of Glimmer of Light itself. The issue now is that since it's just on these two abilities, what I don't like about it personally is that I don't like RNG in my healing. That's basically what it comes down to. I don't like having these random factors in my healing that I cannot predict. So when this happens, when the proc happens, it's not always what I want. And sometimes the proc happens and everyone is at full health, and that proc goes waste. I don't like that when that happens. Now, when it procs, sometimes it's nice. You get a proc, you can use 2 Light of Dawns or 2 Words of Glories, and it can be very useful in that way. But it's not very predictable, and it's not super reliable. It's still good, but it's not super reliable, and it's kind of subjective as well. You do have Holy Avenger now to fight it. Now, Holy Avenger, the new Holy Avenger, is no longer directly benefiting Holy Shocks for more Holy Shocks. It's instead providing your Holy Power generation to be tripled. What this will provide is, say, and I'm gonna put some footage in background of all of this, so you can visualize it and whatnot. What this will provide is, say, your Holy Shocks is now gonna provide 3 Holy Powers. Your Crusader Strikes also 3 Holy Powers. So you can go, say, Holy Shock, Word of Glory back to back. Well, it does have a cooldown, but you do have Sanctified Wrath, which reduces the Holy Shock cooldown, so there's a cool synergy here where you can almost go back to back. And what I meant by that, you can go Holy Shock, Word of Glory, and then you can go Crusader Strike and Word of Glory, back to back. That's what I meant. So yeah, it essentially will allow you to have this big cooldown for emergencies or just when you need more healing, to allow you to put out a lot of Light of Dawns or Word of Glories. I loved it. It proved very useful for me when I play my Holy Paladin. It proved very, very useful, and it feels really nice with the way the spec is now playing with Holy Power. I can predict everything. I can time it when I need to, when I know something bad is coming, or as a oh shit button. I can use it in many different ways, and I can generate that Holy Power in many different ways as well, through my beacons, through my Holy Shocks, and I can specifically target those big heals with Word of Glories, for example, to top people up with this talent. So I really like it, and I vastly prefer it over Divine Purpose, even though that Divine Purpose is obviously much simpler to use. Then we have Seraphin as well. Now, I don't really like Seraphin. Yes, it is increasing our healing output overall, but since it's costing a 3 Holy Power as well, I feel like I'm missing out a little bit on healing. I don't know, I don't like losing that Holy Power through just provide that buff. For that, I just prefer having Holy Avenger, but maybe that's just me. I can imagine people finding good uses out of this, but for me, I do find it Holy Avenger far more useful, much more fun to use as well. Then on this tier is mostly the same. You have Sanctified Wrath, which is doing the same, but as I said, since Holy Avenger, the way that Holy Avenger is working, they synergize really perfectly, and the way that you have Hammer of Wrath working with Avenging Wrath as well, this is also directly benefiting that ability as well. And we have Divine Toll, which we'll talk about, which is the Covenant ability, which is also directly benefiting all of this sort of build, quote-unquote, that we building up here. Then we have these other two. Avenging Crusader is a little bit more interesting now, because obviously when you go to do this talent, you're going to be doing a lot of Crusader Strikes, right? You're going to be doing a lot of Crusader Strikes since the cooldown gets reduced, so you're also going to be able to get a lot of Holy Power. So again, just kind of like Holy Avenger is also a cool combo that you can create with Holy Avenger and Avenging Crusader, where you can just pop those two up, you can stack those up, and you can go Crusader Strike and Word of Glory, then mixing a Holy Shock in there, and just get a lot of big heals, instant cast heals really quickly to top people up. So also very cool, wonderful combos that you can create with these two as well, but these two generally comes down to numbers, and depending on the fight as well, if you can actually fully utilize this too. So the last tier, Beacon of Virtue and Beacon of Fate, they are the same, just that now Beacon of Virtue will also give you Holy Power when you use Flash of Light and Holy Light on any of those targets. So just like your normal Beacon, you're going to be able to get Holy Power when you cast Beacon of Virtue, and if you cast a Flash of Light, you're going to get some Holy Power. So, for dungeons, it continues to be a very good choice. And you're going to be able to get a lot of Holy Power through this as well. Although not as reliably, because you do have a cooldown and not always going to have this up, contrary to Beacon of Light. So, there's that caveat. Another big caveat is the fact that we now have Glimmer Flight, which was the Azerite trait from BFA. And we have here, it's working much in the same, but contrary to BFI, you now have to pick this and these other two talents. So yes, you did lost the Divine Purpose synergy, which sucks, but you also lose, say, if you want to go for a dungeon, you cannot use Glimmer Flight and Beacon of Virtue together, for an example. So there's that big caveat as well, that it's basically nerf, really, I think I can put it like that, which, again, it does suck. But one very cool thing about Glimmer of Flight that you do not have in BFI is the fact that we have crazy Covenant abilities, which we can talk about now, like Divine Toll. Divine Toll is awesome. It was awesome in Protection, and it's awesome here on Holy as well. Essentially, it's a 1-minute cooldown ability that allows you to cast 5 Holy Shocks. Yes, so what this means is that when you press it, you're gonna get 5 Holy Powers, which means you can use this as to top people up, say in a party, in a dungeon, you can top everyone up, and you can go straight to Light of Dawn, or you can go straight to Word of Glory. Great. You can combine this with Avenging Wrath, which makes your Holy Shock crit. Boom, you get 5 crits on Divine Tolls. Awesome. You can combine this with a Legendary, Okay, you can combine this with this very cool legendary, and we're gonna talk about legendaries a bit more later. And this is crafted legendaries in Legion, in Shadowlands, and you can have only one of them. And this one is very cool because it's making your Holy Shocked apply a shield to the target that lasts for 18 seconds and refreshes every 6 seconds, so 3 times. 3 times? Yes, 3 times. Yeah, and is absorbing a decent amount of damage. What this means is, one, it's going to offset some of the downsides of Glimmer of Light, which is great. And when you pop Divine Toll, not only are you going to get 5 Glimmer of Lights straight off, you're also going to pop this shield up, right? And you get the Holy Power. So you see where this is going. And you also have the Avenging Wrath. So you see where this is going. There's wonderful synergies here with your Holy Shocks, between your Glimmer Flights, between your Legendaries, between your cooldowns, between Divine Toll. Very cool stuff that I found very fun to use, and kind of figuring out, well, yeah, this one combines really well with this one combines really well with that. And I had this wonderful discover, pretty simple discover, but a wonderful discover that felt very cool to actually find out. So I think this is a wonderful synergy that is going on here on Holy Paladin that I found really, really fun. Really fun. So yeah, Glimmer Flight, very good with this sort of setup that you have here, and Divine Toll again feels very powerful. Now, one thing about Divine Toll is that contrary to Protection, where that ability was very awesome in multi-target, right? It kind of sucked in single target, right? I mean, it didn't suck, but it's underwhelming because it's an extra Avenger shield and that's it, right? But Divine Toll on Holy Paladins, it's always useful. It's a little bit OP because, like, it doesn't matter if it's a dungeon, doesn't matter if it's a raid, doesn't matter the encounter. Divine Toll, it's always awesome, it's always useful, and it's always great. Okay? Not only that, and I usually don't bring this up because they're gonna be changing them and it's class-wide and I don't want it to get repetitive, but Soulbinds, the Kyrian Soulbinds, which is the covenant that gives you Divine Toll, is also the covenant that has a very meaningful Soulbind traits focused around healing. Okay, so extra benefit, extra pushing you through Kyrian, which is actually fine because Kyrian as a paladin is actually pretty badass. But yeah, I mean, Divine Toll feels very overpowered because, especially comparing to the other abilities, this is simply useful all the time. And especially when combined with Soulbinds, and we do not have conduits yet to test on Paladins, sadly. But yeah, I mean, Divine Toll and the overall Covenant, Kyrian Covenant for Holy Paladins feels very, very powerful, especially when compared to the others. So let's talk about the other Covenant abilities, which are just so underwhelming comparing to Divine Toll. It's not even funny. So you have the Vin Theory Covenant ability, which is Ashen Hollow. This is essentially a very big cooldown, a 4-minute cooldown that allows you to place this huge Area of Effect ability that deals shadow damage, which is so fucking triggering to a Holy Paladin, but hey, it's gonna deal a lot of damage to target inside of it, and is also making your Hammer of Wrath usable on any target, much like your Avenging Wrath. So this will allow you to get more Holy Power in some ways, not a lot, but it does allow you to do that, and some damage too. The thing about this ability is, when I was going into it as a Holy Paladin coming from Protection and Retribution, is that I thought this one was going to be our big CD, right? Our big AoE healing CD, right? Just our tranquility, basically. And I was expecting that, because it has a 4-minute cooldown, it has a cast time, it made sense. But it's not. It only heals. It damages and it heals your allies inside of it, but it's only one ally. A single one. Now the heal that it provides is really big. It's almost the same. It's actually more than a Holy Shock. So it helps you out in that way. But when you think about it, you taking on this ability, which is 4 minutes as a cast time, to just provide this very small heal every 2 seconds for 30 seconds. I mean, it feels really underwhelming when you can use 5 Holy Shocks with Divine Toll, that you have wonderful synergies with Legendaries, that you have wonderful synergies with Glimmer of Light, right? And then you have Ashen Hollow. It felt very underwhelming to me. This could be a very competitive ability, a very cool ability, if it actually healed. Obviously, they would have to turn down the numbers if it actually healed everyone inside of it. And then Paladins would have a big CD, like AoE, like healing ability. But yeah, Ashen Hollow feels very underwhelming. So then you have the Necrolord's ability, which is the Vanquisher's Hammer. Just like this one, just like Ash and Hollow, feels also very underwhelming. So you get this ability, which works much like Judgment. You just throw this green hammer. It costs 1 holy power. And then when you cast your next Word of Glory, it's going to cast a Light of Dawn for free. That's it. So yes, you're getting more healing output overall, and the way you kind of want to use this is that in a situation where you use Light of Dawn, you kind of prioritize a target that is the most low and use Word of Glory, and then you position yourself to do the Light of Dawn. It's fine, but one, you have to preemptively target that, right, to use the ability. The buff doesn't last very long, so you cannot like use that and then plan around. The buff lasts for little over 10 seconds, so you don't have a lot of time to actually decide when to use that. And even then, the healing that it provides overall, it feels very underwhelming. When you compare that with the Maldraxxus Covenant overall, the Soulbinds, which have no healing improvements at all. It has no healing-focused Soulbinds at all. Again, this is due to change, but again, so far, it's pushing you further to Kyrian. It's not even funny. Then you have the Night Fae. Now, the Night Fae is more interesting. Now, it's not providing you extra healing output. Well, it is, and we'll talk about that, but it's more on the support side, okay? But it's not like this big healing ability like Divine Toll, but it's more on the support side. So essentially it's providing you 4 blessings. They are on 30 seconds each, and they kind of switch in between. It's called Blessing of the Seasons, and each of the 4 buffs are going to change each time you use one. Okay, so you get Blessing of the Summer, which you bless an ally for 30 seconds, as I said, and it's going to reduce their cooldowns by 50%, which is pretty big. You're getting Blessing of Autumn, which is adding extra damage on auto attacks, or some extra holy damage. Okay, fine. You're getting Blessing of Winter, which is also adding some extra frost damage, and it's decreasing their attack speed and movement speed. Fine. And you're also having a Blessing of Spring, which is increasing their healing by 20% and healing received by 20%. Now, one very cool thing about this. Well, first of all, you really need to get some juicy macros and some juicy auras, because using them without any add-ons, I'm kind of lazy to actually set those up in the beta, at least until we can get LVY. But anyway, you're really going to need to set up some auras to use this ability appropriately, because I have to constantly check what I'm going to get next. But the reason why I say that is because the cool thing about this ability is that it makes you a bit of a support class on top of being a healer, on top of actually being able to put out some DPS. So on top of going in and doing DPS with Crusader Strikes and getting benefits with Holy Power and doing your regular healing, you're also going to be buffing people. So you're going to be having 3 roles in a way. And I really like that. I really like, in the middle of my healing, in the middle of my Crusader Striking DPSing, be figuring out who I'm gonna bless. Okay, so I get the 50% cooldown reduction. Okay, I'm gonna buff this DPS spec that really benefits from having faster cooldowns. Okay, now I have Blessing of Autumn. Okay, so it deals extra damage on attack, so I'm gonna apply on this DPS spec that attacks really quickly, so they're gonna get an extra benefit out of that. I'm gonna get the Blessing of Winter, which is increasing healing. Okay, I'm gonna place on a tank. Is a Blood Decay, is gonna get 20% extra healing, and I'm gonna heal him for 20% more. So you see where there's gonna be a lot of decisions for you to make with those blessings. Now, as I said, it can get a little bit pretty hectic without auras, and even with auras, in the middle of your healing, trying to maximize that, it's a little bit troublesome, because it's 30 seconds, it's reasonably quickly, and in the middle of your healing, especially if you are in a hectic fight, it can get a little bit troublesome to actively, trying to maximize those buffs, but regardless, it is pretty fun, and feels very Paladin-esque. I've missed the somewhat support aspect of Paladins in WoW, and I really like that Night Fae take on a Paladin ability to be very support eccentric. So I really like that. Obviously it needs some tuning, needs some work, and you definitely need add-ons again, but thematically, and I think the use of it is pretty cool and pretty interesting. Okay, so that pretty much covers our Covenant abilities. Only the Divine Toll and the Night Fae one is reasonably interesting for Holy Paladins, which is funny. So legendaries. Now I mentioned the very cool legendary on Holy Shocks that complements your spec and your this build very well. And so you also have casting Avenging Wrath. You get 5 holy powers, so you can go for big heals the minute you pop that CD. You can have Judgment, have a 50% chance to reduce your holy power spender. So this is adding some extra meaning to Judgment. So you definitely want to put maximize that as well, and you can combine, say, with Judgment of Light. Okay, so you get 2 benefits out of Judgment, which is cool. This one is kind of weird. When you reach 5 holy power, you get Blessing of Dawn. When you have 0, you get Blessing of Dusk. Just a simple buff. You have your Infusion of Light as an additional charge, and their effects are increased by 20%, so it's just a raw healing increase output. And you also have Light of Dawn in range is increased to 40 yards, and allies inside of your Light of Dawn receive 10% healing from your spell. So this is increasing your AoE multi-target healing capabilities, so it's pretty neat as well. So yeah, that covers all legendaries. Again, we cannot test conduits, but overall, I like the Holy Paladin. Yeah, it can be a little bit polarizing, the fact that it has holy power. I can understand people not really enjoying how, the way it plays with holy power, just like some people don't enjoy the mastery that Holy Paladins have, and the criticisms towards that, I think they are completely valid. But I had fun. It feels fun. I feel like I'm not just healing, I'm doing all this bunch of other things. I'm buffing people, I'm DPSing, and buffs my healing, and then I'm healing, and I'm have all these CDs, I'm managing my auras, I'm managing my Aura of Mastery, I'm managing my other baseline blessings. I'm doing a lot of shit at the same time that kept me thoroughly engaged, and I really enjoyed my time with it. Plus, Divine Toll again is awesome. So yeah, guys, that covers the Holy Paladin. Do let me know what you think down below, and as always, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.